And welcome back to part 6, and maybe we'll see how it goes, the last part of What If Naruto left the village instead of Sasuke. So last time in Naruto What If, the invasion of pain happened and went because Sasuke and Naruto teamed up, Naruto having Sage Mode and Sasuke having his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, courtesy of his brother, who they picked up his corpse afterwards. Kasame had actually been legitimately killed, straight out killed, well, he had been legitimately killed. Actually, ultimately, Kasame will be taken down by both the Raikage and Killer Bee, and in this version, he can't hide in Samahara because he's fused with Samahara, so he just legitimately gets taken out. But we left off with Obito and Danzo basically going head-to-head. Obito basically taking care of Danzo's minions, if you will, and Danzo, squaring off to go up against him. Now, the question in this scenario is, first off, is Obito going to actually take on Danzo? Not if he can help. Obito at that point really wasn't much of a going into combat. He was more using his Mangekyo to just eliminate targets, more or less. But he could still, if he had to, fight. More to the point, though, Danzo. Could Danzo actually beat Obito? Well, we know Obito also has Izanagi as well. And that poses an interesting little kerfuffle here for Danzo. Because Danzo needs some time to prep himself. Danzo also has Izanagi. That's why he was trying to awaken the Rinnegan, didn't work, but he still has Izanagi, multiple Sharingans on his arm, the whole thing. And ultimately, I feel as Danzo, first off, Danzo's going to make the first move. He's going to, use Winjutsu, whatnot, try to take out Obito. Obviously, someone brought up a good point that Danzo was a very underutilized, or is a very good asset for Obito. Unfortunately, Danzo, I don't think would be brought over to the Akatsuki side. He was still someone who valued and protected the village, so I don't think that is what would happen. And as the fight goes on and more eyes get lost, Danzo is going to be pushed in the corner. Now, fortunately, he'd be able to use at least some of Izanagi to trick Obito and maybe get the jump on him. But I think what would ultimately happen here is that Danzo gets down to maybe his last eye, which, just like with Sasuke, he puts a Sharingan or puts a Genjutsu on there and tries to use Izanagi, but all of a sudden just gets a blade straight through him, just similar to Sasuke. When he turns around, he sees Orochimaru there dressed down in Akatsuki robes again, because ultimately they worked a scenario out where they'd be working together again. It's like, Orochimaru, how could you snake? Of course, it's like, flattery will get you nowhere, Danzo. How could you? It's very simple, you see. And there's something I want in the village, and the man in the orange mask there has agreed to give me it in exchange for my services in helping bring down the village. You want the Uchiha's body, don't you? As old as you are, you're still sharp as ever. And just twist it like, of course, having your Sharingan might not be as bad idea after all. Oh, no, but just say, I'll be taking your Sharingan. You'll be taking nothing. And then obviously the seal activates, like, and they have to get out of there. And so, yeah, and unfortunately they learn of the passing Kasane's like, again, problems. Oh, and he basically shows them where the white Zetsus are. And Orochimaru's like, I've studied the third cells multiple times. I've been on an experiment where I tried to gain the wood release. To no avail, unfortunately. I might be able to speed this along, Danzo. Toby. If you can get it done. If you can do it, I have business to attend to. And so he goes after Konan, gets the Rinnegan back. He only had one Rinnegan. We know that. He even said that himself. And so, he's hard at work making his Edo Tensei's skins, Kabuto and Orochimaru, have that in their arsenal. That's how they're going to form their army. So the Kage Summit happens. Raikage is made the leader. They take care of Kasame, if they hadn't already. And so Naruto is still going to be put on the island with Killer Bee. And that's where a lot of Naruto's training is now going to come from, is just being on the island. And really, that is gonna go down pretty much to pat. Like, that's gonna go basically the same as it did previously. He's gonna unlock the seal, but the only difference here is that when he unlocks the seal or goes for it, Minato actually shows up first, because that's not what happened here. So not only does Minato show up, but I think Kushina and Minato both show up at the same time, as he basically explained it. And because of that, they're able to see each other again, and Naruto gets an actual true family reunion with his mother and his father. And they have a good time. Kuro's just getting, I know, this is disgusting. And they say, shut up. And they just, he actually uses the seal. And, they fade. Minato didn't have as much chakra, but Kushina actually had enough to help him out a little bit. So Kushina actually lends him her chakra and her aid, and he goes toe-to-toe with Kurama. Now, goes a lot of the same, but this time, because he has the backing of his mother and he had that talk with his father right before then, the corruption of his negative aspect his negative self does not come into play. It doesn't. So he ultimately gains control of Kurama. All's well that ends well on that. Now, you should note, Iruka is also there. There is no Tenso, though. Yamato is on the front lines. Sasuke is also on the front lines, despite the fact that he doesn't want to be on the front line. He wanted to help Naruto, but Iruka's still there. Furthermore, Kasame isn't. And Guy's there too. That's right. Kasame isn't there, so there's no attack, at least from Kasame. Now, do Orochimaru and Kabuto maybe try to attack the Nine Tails, like try to attack the island like it did? I could see them trying using Manda and not Ultra Manda. Manda's still very much around here. So I could see him doing that, or at least Kabuto doing it on his stead, as Orochimaru is, I could see them both doing that, because, once they activate the, Tensei, they're under his control, and they got their orders, and they're just going to do what they're going to do. Unfortunately, with Naruto now activating, for Kurama mode, he's able to very quickly keep them at bay. Also, we know the Tsuchikage got involved, all that. Naruto bypasses Iruka's barrier seal, as he did learn barrier seals from Jiraiya to some degree. Not anything like to Jiraiya's level, but we know Naruto would theoretically be have a very large aptitude towards seals, thanks to being an Uzumaki. Deactivates him, and then he heads out. The Raikage and Tsunade try to stop him or get in his way. Raikage tries to stop him. He bypasses him, goes on to the battlefield. Now, meanwhile, on the battlefield, what's going on? What's going down? Let's chat. We'll rap with me, brothers. Anyway, so most of the main fights at this point would go down the same. Size is a little debatable, because I do believe Sai, seeing his brother, like the one he called a brother, would possibly invoke an emotion in him, despite the fact he hasn't had the growth he's had in this. Other than that, but otherwise, I just think that Sai is just kind of a nothing character in this version. I mean, he can still use his ink to fight and all that stuff and help out, but I think he's kind of just a nothing character. The individuals who get the best, like Kankuro would, help Sasori pass on. Dedra doesn't want to, but whatever. He'd get Kakuzu attacking like Inazuma attacking Choji, Inashikatro, all that. Sasuke would be posing would be very astute for this fight, though, as he'd probably be paired with Kakashi initially, and they would be taking on the Seven Swordsmen. Afterwards, though, he'd go on to the front fields to help against some of the Kages. My guess is we actually would ultimately get Sasuke and Madara facing off very early on compared to what we get in the original. Now, Killer Bee and Naruto do end up running into Nagato and Itachi. The question is, did Itachi put the Genjutsu in Naruto when they confront? Well, he didn't. We know he didn't, because they didn't confront each other in the initial one. So unfortunately, Itachi here can't deactivate himself, at least not the same way. Because there was actually no reason to do that. There was actually no reason to put that in. So Itachi is actually full-on antagonist in this, which is actually very different than what we had here. So let's look at the Naruto Killer Bee Itachi thing first, and Nagato, Naruto, Itachi Killer Bee. They because even with Itachi helping, they still struggled against Nagato. They really did. Fortunately, though, Naruto in this version is definitely definitely has a lot more tricks up his sleeve. He can deactivate Genjutsu probably a bit more effectively. But I think actually Naruto and Naruto face off while Killer Bee and Itachi face off because Killer Bee is on much better terms with the Eight Tails, so he can actually snap out of Genjutsus. The question becomes, how are they going to ultimately put these guys down? Because either these guys have actual Genjutsus. Well, fortunately, I think they get to see. I think one of the Naruto clones comes back when he realizes that they need some sort of seal to put these guys, to bed, basically, because they have no way of actually taking these guys out unless they destroy the kunai inside of them. One of the Naruto clones goes out, gets information about the seal. And Naruto, I think, knows enough about seals at this point to at least make the seal on the fly, so he can seal them away. And Nagato's actually going to be the easier of them, provided he doesn't do Chibaku Tensei. Now, if he does, which honestly he might be able to, that may pose a bit of a problem. But Naruto goes, honestly, just using Fox Chakra, throws both a Rasen Shuriken and a Rasen Inferno together to basically create a Rasen Inferno Shuriken. Basically, it's combining the two together to just create a super powerful ball of incinerating death, and just throw that Chibaku Tensei, and just boom, and then just everything's gone there. Their bodies are slowly regenerating, to which Killer Bee and Naruto basically gets two sealing tags and just So it's like, oh, we're good. So that ends that. Unfortunately, that still leaves Kabuto and Orochimaru at large here, because Itachi was going to stop the jutsu. Without them, they're like, you could make the argument, though, that Naruto could sense, because we know that they weren't that far away from that location. So as they're traveling, you could make the argument Naruto senses their location, and him and Killer Bee actually head there. So let's go with that. But let's move over to the other side of the coin here, folks. Madara Uchiha brings out, Sasuke's on the battlefield. He hasn't really activated Susanoo yet, but he's he's easily taking care of some of these guys. I think he could even arguably take down the Raikage the same way Naruto did, just by using maybe an arm of Susanoo or something like that. But then Madara Uchiha comes up, and Sasuke is actually shocked to see his ancestor there. It's like, so this is what the ninja world has come to. And then basically it's him, Madara Uchiha. And he basically brings down the meteor. However, what he wasn't expecting was another individual with an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. He wasn't expecting it, just due to the fact that Kabuto or Orochimaru was communicating through Mu at the time, explains that. It's like, he's the last living Uchiha. I was like, I see, the last of my clan. What a shame. And so Naruto, and so Sasuke, has the eternal Susanoo, perfect Susanoo, and he just cleaves the meteor in two, and then just throws it back at Madara, who, then immediately goes into his perfect Susanoo, and they had that clash of ideology, and you're talking like, I see, so you are the last of my bloodline, and to think you were able to activate the eternal Mangekyo as I was. What a waste to see you have to die. But you're standing in the way of my plans, and I cannot allow that. And I can't allow you to hurt innocent people just in the name of some plans. I don't care if you're living or a corpse. I'll stop you. We'll see about that, little boy, or say my young Uchiha. And so they clash sword to sword. Sasuke, we know, can manipulate Amaterasu, so his has Amaterasu on there, and they're clashing, and they're going toe to toe. And Madara, for the first time in a while, is like, you're not Hashirama, but you do make for an entertaining fight. And so it's not like I kind of went to Rocky there a little bit. But to be fair, Madara, the minute he sensed Hashirama, is like, Hashirama! It's like, I can't wait for this. So, but, it's probably the first good fight he's had since he died. So him and Sasuke are like kaiju fighting in the area, and unfortunately, Madara being a corpse and basically having infinite reserve of chakra right now, And Sasuke just being not as experienced, Sasuke is losing the fight, unfortunately. And it's tough, but just as Madara is about to deliver the final blow, all of a sudden, without warning, a giant boom, a hand shows up. Now keep in mind, this is a clone still, but what's the hand? Well, as the clone Naruto got there, Naruto started hearing Kurama. That meddling human. What's up with you? I will let. Because there was a one-time exception, Brett. And so, even though it's a clone, Kurama's full form is there. Granted, the glowing Kurama, but his full form is there. The Kurama, the nine-tailed fox. And he can see the chakra and everything else does. Like, you're not the real host, are you? You're just a clone. I can tell by the chakra. It's getting hard just to even keep that form. Maybe, but we only need to hold it just for so long. Sasuke, Naruto, and they combine together and they create the armored Kurama because Sasuke basically and him are kind of merging their chakras a little bit together, and so they clash again. Except now it's a Kurama's power added onto that, and now it's boom, and even Madara is like, it's a guy now to pull out rock. He's like, boom, I can't hold him, ugh! And so now they're going back, and now he uses the wood release. Like, what? And it's like, yes, I get. There's many things I gained from Hashirama after our last battle. Let me show you. And then so, he does wood release. Meanwhile, back at the plot, Naruto and Killer Bee finally reach Orochimaru and Kabuto. And basically like, be careful. You should be very... And, Killer Bee's like, we could just blow your ass up, yo! It's like, but even if you killed us, it wouldn't stop the jutsu. You'd have to force us to undo the jutsu ourselves. Now, and how do you expect to do that? And Naruto and Killer Bee just like, neither of us have genjutsu on our side, so that does pose a problem. However, that being said, that doesn't mean they don't have nothing at their disposal. Now, what does that mean? Well, Naruto immediately starts blitzing both of them, and they can't keep up with Naruto's speed at all. Naruto's way beyond them. If they couldn't keep up probably with the Raikage, which I doubt Orochimaru could, they can't keep up with Naruto, who actually outsped the Raikage, and who we know by when he got his sixth path abilities was light speed. So yeah, he starts blitzing them, but fortunately they prepare some clones of substitutions. But Naruto can sense where they are. Killer Bee then after a lot of tussling, wind jutsus being thrown, all that, Killer Bee finally grabs them, and Naruto just hits them with a kunai just in the shoulder. It's like, is that really all you can do? It's like, what is this? And it's like paralysis seal. I picked up a couple tricks from the old man, Pervy Sage. May rest in peace. It makes a lot of sense. That'd be the one thing to say. Is that, what do you plan to do now? You won't be able to get it out of us, Naruto. You have no technique that would be able to persuade us. And then Naruto just thinks on it for a little bit. Like, something. If you think I fear death, you're wrong. It's like, and then Naruto just suddenly holds a Rasengan, a fire Rasengan, bitch, it's just a glowing ball, just dead. And Orochimaru can feel that he's like. Naruto actually goes like full on, like, are you sure about that? Surprisingly, for a guy who keeps trying to steal bodies, and keep himself young forever, that's kind of a bold statement to say you don't fear death. What about you, Kabuto? And all of a sudden, Kabuto's got another arm there. Just this time, it's a wind one and it's blades. And they heard through their spine. They heard what happened to Kakuzu, and what the Rasen Shuriken could do to him. Like, and even Kabuto's not looking forward. It's like, but you're right. This isn't who you are. You're not someone who hurts just for information. You're no interrogator. We Biki or Ranko. No, you're Naruto. And Naruto just looks at it and is like, something, you're right. B. And then boom, knocks them out. And what they'll do is they'll ultimately bring them to someone who could do a genjutsu that will ultimately be able to, maybe Sasuke, basically, and ultimately be able to get them to undo the jutsu. Unfortunately, in Naruto, finally that clone pops. And I was like, we got to get out of here. And then finally they try to head over to Sasuke. but they get intercepted by Obito. Now, now Naruto sends a clone off with the bodies, and basically kind of, keeps them all safe and taken care of. But that whole thing with Obito and Naruto and Killer Bee, that goes almost exactly the same. Like, again, the final form of the fox comes out, because this time you can hold it for a little bit longer, because they did it the one time, even though it was a clone. But ultimately, everyone gets to the battlefield when they need to get to the battlefield. Albeit, you're not getting, and this is another big thing here, you're not getting, think words here, you're not getting Hashirama. Although, to be fair, Orochimaru could summon Hashirama. Like, why? I think about the Kages. Oh, you know why? You know why he couldn't do that? Because they were all sealed away with the Reaper Destiny. That's why he couldn't do that. So, granted, he probably wasn't going to stop off at the Uzumaki Shrine either, because that was him trying to save the day kind of thing. That wasn't him trying to screw everyone over. Although, if he was going to aid, I suppose it's not impossible for him to have done that prior. For the sake of coherent things, let's say that the four Kage show up. Ooh, that's a problem, because again, Orochimaru is the bad guy at the moment. Although Hashirama was the one he couldn't control, and I think Hashirama could honestly keep the other three in check. Like, he could probably actually just bind them up, and there you go, they're not getting out. Or at the very minimum, keep them from fighting everyone else, and then Hashirama show. So it's a giant debacle of everyone going. It's a giant mess, really. And so Obito again brings out the tree. They still have a bit of the 8 tails, so he becomes a pseudo Jinchuriki for the 10 tails, or the pseudo 10 tails at this point. 6 pats Obito. The fight again goes down. God almighty things happening here. A lot of the same things would happen, minus the Kage. Now, the Kage, even though they can't help per se, like in physical terms, they can still help with giving advice. They can still help, like, just say, do this, do that, you gotta do this. But ultimately, without the Kage there, I have to question whether or not they would be able to beat them. Because without the Kage there, you don't have like Minato and Tobirama using Flying Raijin. You don't, or Flying Thunder God, I believe it's called. So you don't have that. I was talking about it. Sometimes, most of this I've already got playing in my head, but sometimes I hit a point where I realized after saying it all out, I'm like, ooh, God, is this going to end in a bad way? Honestly, no. I think basically Sasuke is able to, because Sasuke gets, I think, healed up by like either the Metal Course Sakura or Tsunade. So when they're able to get Orochimaru and Kabuto to him, he wakes them up briefly and then just puts them in the Genjutsu and undoes the Edo Tensei, because that's the main way to defeat the Edo Tensei at that point. And that actually releases the Kages as well. So all the Kages, including Hashirama, are released. Madara is able to prevent that by hijacking Obito, as we remember. The Tail Beasts get released, and then that debacle happens. Naruto and Sasuke, I do think they'll go down, but they also are able to meet Hagoromo and are able to ultimately be kept alive. I think between Sakura and Tsunade, who isn't as in bad shape because Sasuke was able to hold on off the brunt of Madara in that scenario. So they're able to still unlock their Mangekyo, their Six Sage abilities. Madara is, unfortunately, I think Madara still gets his final form, which leads to Kaguya, which leads to ultimately Team 7 again, but this time Sasuke is not a villain, so it goes a lot smoother. And with the Tail Beast all saved and all that, all's well that ends well for the Ninja War. Because I'm just like rolling over everything in my head here about what could change. And again, I think it's just a matter of, I think the big question mark was, without the 4 Kage on their side, does that completely screw them over? And I don't think it does. I don't think it does, because Hashirama was the one Kage who Orochimaru couldn't control. And he was the strongest of them. And with the wood release, I think he could keep them bound up pretty effectively. I think he could actually keep them in check. Or at the very least, keep them from causing too much havoc. So with, the White Sensors being cleaned up, Orochimaru and Kabuto basically being completely, chakra cuffed and all that, because you didn't find themselves in this version. No, they were still villains to the end. That leaves us pretty much with the end of the series. So yeah, I guess I was able to get it done in one. Because, yeah, everything else I think would go pretty much the same. Even Kakashi losing the eye. So, yeah, which brings us now to the end where who's paired up with who? Well, I do think still it's Sakura and Sasuke. I still think it's Naruto Hinata. Although I did lay a little bit of groundwork for something else, like maybe Tamari or something. I ultimately think it would still be Naruto and Hinata. Tenten is not with anyone. Neji is also still dead. I think we need to be very clear about that. We know Rock Lee had a kid with someone, so that happened. Shikamaru and Tamari, I still think would be together. And we'd also get Kari and Choji, which was an odd one. Poor Jugo, Suigetsu, and Karin are just, gone. Well, not gone, but they are. They eventually probably get freed and do their own thing. But am I missing it? Oh, Ino. Ino is the one where we do need to question who she ends up with, because she wound up with Sai at the end, but Sai had actually had development and actually turned into be a pretty okay guy at the end. This Sai has not, so that does actually beg a question. Because we know Ino would wind up with someone. Who would Ino wind up with? Thinking on it for, because we now know you can go and get married to someone from another village and just become a part of their village. Would someone from another village marry Ino? Because the only people available who are still single in the village would be Kiba, and I don't think she'd really dig on Kiba that much. And technically Lee, but I doubt she'd go for Lee either. Because I think Sai would eventually turn into an okay guy, but I don't think there was no development for him and Ino at all. Not there was any really in the original either. And there's hardly any development for any of these, except for Sakura with someone and Hinata and Naruto. And that's being generous, because they're not romance mangas. They're shonen mangas, which are not known for the romantic aspects. Naruto the Last Movie is the most romance you're ever getting on a Naruto property. And honestly, I thought that was actually an okay handled story, too, in terms of how that... I do still felt it was rushed, him saying, I love you, but whatever. I'm just thinking of everyone from other villages. I mean, I guess you could say, was it Darui? The guy, because we know that... I can't remember who became the next Raikage. I don't remember his name, but Darui, the guy who... No, that is Darui. It's... Karui is not his... I don't think they're siblings, but her teammate. She could wind up with him because, again, with Choji winding up with Karui, who saw that coming, she could wind up with just about anyone. I don't see anyone from the Rock Village being a good eligible bachelor. I suppose Kankuro is an option. I suppose. Actually, I could see Chojiro too. Actually, Chojiro could see being a very nice option for me because he's a sweet guy. He's still a good fighter and all that. Yeah, let's say she ends up with Chojiro. I kind of like that. Now, granted, that would actually stop him from becoming the Mizukage, though, unless she decided to move to the Mist. So there is that little catch. Honestly, maybe she did. I mean, Karui moved to the Leaf, so why not her move to the Mist? But I do like her and Chojiro. I kind of like that one. Anyway, so that, and Naruto obviously becomes Hokage in the end. I think he accepts that role. And so, all's well that does end well for the What If Naruto left instead of Sasuke. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Since I was, in fact, able to finish this within one more video, then I am going to now put up the poll for the next Naruto Zanpakuto What If. Man, I've been looking forward to the next one because I had a lot of fun with the Ichimonji one. But we'll be continuing. I'll put it in the description. But we will not be doing any other Zero members Zanpakuto because the only other one is Korinji's, and A, I don't want to do a back-to-back Zero Division one. But B, it's the one Zanpakuto I did do a theory video on that I'm like, I don't really want to do that one because there's just nothing to speculate on. And we're not doing Iba's because we don't even know the damn name of it. We just know what it looks like. We don't even know what it does. So we're just not doing those two. But other than that, though, that's all free game. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you folks next time.